I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to have you here today because when we all get to go home tonight, they're going to go do a walk through the stadium to make sure it is good for tomorrow's game against the Angels. So, yay. This is unique, and we were talking earlier that it's exciting for everybody. We get to hear the entire process moving forward on this iconic stadium, 50+ years old, that really hasn't gone through a lot of retrofits except for some cosmetic improvements. Now there's Francine comes into the organization with sustainability goals, and who, what, where, when, how this started from the Dodger Stadium of a year ago to the Dodger Stadium of this evening to moving forward into next year and beyond. So it's going to be very exciting to hear and understand why this is being done and the process, technical and thought process on how it's being done. And our guest speaker panel is Mohit Mehta. Mohit is the Director of Sustainable Design at ME Engineers. His responsibilities include sustainable design consulting, energy and daylighting modeling and analysis, airflow modeling, and lead certification consulting on sports venues, commercial, healthcare, and institution building projects. Some of the projects he's currently working on is obviously Dodger Stadium, Estadio Nacional de Brasilia, the main stadium for the World Cup soccer, VTB Stadium and Training Facility in Moscow, Russia for the Olympics, coming up in less than a year in the winter. Farmers Field, the pending Farmers Field.
If the final team.
If pending. Australian Open, tennis, Margaret Court Arena. So those are just a few of his projects. And no, thank you very much for coming. Ella.
Hi.
Hazard. Ella is with Levin Associates Architects, an urban design and architectural firm, and they're renowned for historic preservation and adaptive reuse work on many of the Southern California's most beloved landmarks, including the Bradbury Building, Grand Central Market West, the Wiltern Theater, and the restoration of the Griffith Observatory. Ella Hazard's years of experience in the Los Angeles area, previous work in sporting venues and construction knowledge enhanced the team's ability to accomplish a great deal of work with a restrictive off-season schedule. So they were under a timeline to get all this done. And I was at the stadium, Francine gave me a tour 2 weeks ago, and I never would have thought that it would have gotten done with everything that needed to be done. And she was very confident, multitasking about 1,500 items moving forward. And Corbett Belcher. Corbett is a project manager with experience managing the progress of a number of public improvements. His works range from regional and community parks to urban redevelopment and corporate headquarters, having provided him with an invaluable experience on demanding projects. These projects, particularly the award-winning Orange County Great Park, where Corbett was one of the influential team members in the design and the master plan for the Orange County Great Park. Corbett is with MIA Lehrer Architectural Landscape Company. And Francine Hughes. Francine is the Vice President of Operations for the Los Angeles Dodgers. She enters her 4th full season with the Dodgers and 3rd as Vice President of Stadium Operations. In this capacity, she manages the 330-acre Dodger Stadium, including all aspects of ballpark operations, such as facilities, maintenance, oversight of landscape and turf management, guest services, parking, and stadium rentals. She also serves as the Dodgers' operational liaison to their spring training home in Camelback Ranch, Glendale, and their academy in the Dominican Republic, Campo Las Palmas, as if you didn't have enough to do. She's involved in every aspect of the management of the stadium and has been instrumental in spearheading the Green Initiative and sustainable goals for the Los Angeles Dodgers organization and the facility. So with that, I will introduce Mohit, who will start off the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. We're going to start with just a definition of sustainability. Everybody knows sustainability really well, but everybody's definition and understanding is really different. and from region to region, place to place, personal, relationships, education, everything defines sustainability very differently. So we'll look at that. If that's not hard enough or challenging enough, then how does it relate to sports? It's a totally different animal. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to get into some leading examples of sustainability in MLB parks and sports. And then we're going to get into what's actually going on in Dodger Stadium so you can kind of compare. So I think that's a good presentation. This is a pretty standard definition. Anybody who's dealt with sustainability or LEED should have heard this. It came out with the UN. It's the Brundtland Report. It basically talks about meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations. But when it comes to sports, it's very different. Now I have a couple of things with that. So I'm going to throw out a couple of things to think about. So what are we doing when we do, say, a code compliant building, and the codes are always becoming more tighter and stringent? It's good. Then we do a LEED silver building, right? I'm sure some of you have heard this. Or we do LEED gold or LEED platinum. All we are doing is doing less bad. Now, is doing less bad good enough, right? I want to give you an example. I'm sure you've heard that before too. So say we're using too much cardboard or too much paper packaging. We've heard that all the time, right? And what's wrong with that? Well, Indonesia is going to lose all its rainforest in 10 years if we continue at that rate. So we say, all right, let's start using less paper and cardboard in our packaging. Great. What did you do? Not a whole lot. Now that Indonesia was going to get deforested in 10 years, now it's going to get deforested in 15 years. Did you really do anything? Now you got to rethink. You see what I'm saying? You got to rethink packaging so you're not using cardboard and paper so Indonesia does not get deforested. Now, our understanding is like, okay, I'm doing LEED silver, that's less bad, right? So you got to be very careful of what the true meaning of, or dictionary meaning of sustainable is. So just think about it. And I'm not going to read this. I'm going to move on to a couple of, in sports, very different animal. Why I say that, couple of things about sports. So in a home, we live there every day, 365 days a year. Office, we occupy office buildings, 265 days a year, pretty much 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. these buildings all the time. Now when you come to sports, everything changes. If it's baseball, you have 80 home games. Football, 8 home games, maybe 10 with preseason. Now you have a building that's used as much resource and uses as much energy as a small city, but it's used only 8 to 10 times a year. Changes everything, right? And not just in the United States, think about it all over the world. At least baseball is still much better than most organizations. You have 80, 90 home games. I mean, look at football, 8 home games. College football. I mean, there being college football stadiums being built all over this country right now. At most 8, 9 home games, and then just sits idle for about 360 days a year. How much money goes in. It's happening all over the world. So just something to think about. And the challenges, it's just very challenging. How do you justify putting a super efficient system that's going to sit idle for 360 days a year? Where's your return on investment? Isn't that what everybody's looking for, right? ROI, life cycle. It's only going to be used 5 days a year, 10 days a year. I mean, ROI is not going to look really good. Anyway, just something to think about again. Again, like I said, it has to, when it comes to sports, it's not just what you do at the building. It's communication, logistics, accounting, and most important, decision making from the ownership. There's millions of decisions being made. What paper products, what toilet paper am I going to buy? Simple things like that to what food am I going to source? And is sustainability a key decision making metric? That's what I'm saying, Or is it, which is the quickest, cheapest, fastest? Is that the metric? Or is sustainability also a metric? It's very critical to look at it that way. And look at all the different areas that it impacts in a sports facility. Site selection, obviously Dodgers, we didn't have much choice. You've already heard, and you're going to hear more. It's already a 50-plus-year-old building. Procurement, supply chain, huge. Transportation. I'll give you some examples of that. Accommodation, catering, food, marketing, communication, touching base, huge things. Community involvement, a big part of sports facilities, and also education. And I'm going to cover a couple of examples as well. Think of it this way, you know, how do you define, so I'm trying to put a graphic to it, how do you define sustainability? Say you're building a sports stadium from scratch, right? You sit down in a room and you have a master planning discussion, right? Think about it right now. Most of us can really relate to design and construction, but in a sports facility, master planning, lots of opportunities can be lost. And I'll give you a couple of examples of why and how they can be lost or gained at the master planning level before the building's even thought about what you're going to do on the building, our values and all these things. Not even that master planning, just at that early stage. And then obviously you come down to design and construction. That's critical. And then obviously O&M, you know, which is Francine's thing on Dodger Stadium. Huge part. And then I've got these two other circles over here, major events, and I want to just talk a little bit about that. Major events is like, say, it's very different. So you have a regular season game, or whether for football or baseball, but guess what? If you get the Super Bowl, the entire thing is totally different. The dynamic, the metric, everything changes again. That's a major event. Or if you get the All-Star game, get the World Series, there's twice as much press, there's twice as much media, there's twice as many trucks, electronics, you name it. So it changes everything. How do you manage that? That's also part of sustainability. And most people, if you think you're addressing sustainability on only one and you say, oh, it's a LEED stadium, it's a green building, we are sustainable. Really? Did you touch on all these other boxes? All these other circles? You know, it's very, so these are some places where thought is being given. And you have to, and legacy mode is not really applicable to stadiums, I would say in the United States, but internationally, just to open you, a lot of these stadiums internationally are being built for events like, say, the Olympics. Everybody knows that, or the World Cup. Guess what? That's 1 month activity, and a lot of these stadiums don't see any activity after that 1 month period for the life of it. South Africa hosted the World Cup. I'll tell you, 90% of the stadiums are not seeing any activity, believe it or not. You know, at anywhere between $300, $400, $500 million a piece. Majority of your stadiums are not seeing any activity after 1 month. I mean, that's a real shame, right? And we're talking, so that's very critical. And I'll give you a good example, actually. Legacy mode, London. Great example. Huge stadium. How it was built was obviously capacity for 40, 50, 60,000 on opening day for Olympics. But after that, the stadium was built to get deconstructed and moved down to 10, 12,000 capacity for the legacy mode operation. Actually, believe it or not, it's so far out, but the World Cup in Doha in 2022, that's a major requirement for every stadium. Minimum requirement for FIFA, just throwing things out, 45,000 seats. Legacy mode, they're saying anywhere between 10 to 15. So all stadiums will have to account for 45, 50 or more for the event. And there has to be a way of deconstructing those stadiums. And they have decided that they will donate the deconstructed stadiums to countries that are in need, emerging countries and so on, and how to do it. So many legacy mode is so critical. So if you're not really addressing all these 5 things, you're not doing justice in terms of calling yourself green or sustainable. It's very difficult. Fair? Any questions? Right? A couple of organizations, Major League Baseball, and the Dodgers and all are working with. Obviously, I'm not going to read all of this. You know, these guys are so-called the green sustainability advisors to MLB. And I don't know if you know much about this organization. One of the main trustees is Robert Redford of this, and very passionate about sustainability, and they're working really hard. Did you want to say something about Green Sports Alliance now? Steve, did you want to?
The Green Sports Alliance is actually just a very new organization. It's in its 3rd year of existence. And it was actually formed by one of the owners, or the majority owner for the Portland Trail Blazers. I think he's the other guy from Microsoft. Not Bill Gates, but Paul Allen. And Paul Allen also has a development company called Vulcan Enterprises. And he built some great projects throughout the Northwest. So needless to say that there's a lot of NBA support. But into Major League Baseball, the main driving factor of the success of the Green Sports Alliance was you have this facility that has this massive footprint in this community. So with all the other benefits to the community, donating fields and other monetary benefits to the community, well, what is the stadium actually contributing back to the community, or what is it doing to try to make less of a footprint, as so to speak? And that's where the Green Sports Alliance came in, is how can we help these venues and these teams become more responsible citizens of the community and be role models? Because what's being done at the stadium can very easily be done in their homes, can very easily be done in a 4-home development or a condominium development or a multifamily development or multi-use development. So you're looking at this massive scale on what's happening, but it can also be done at a cost base and cost factor on the smaller scales. And that's what the Green Sports Alliance was founded on the principles of. And there was somebody from Major League Baseball, Bud Selig, who's the commissioner of Major League Baseball, and through the National Resource Defense Council, put together a mandate. You know, we were talking earlier, I mean, he could very easily say, I'm going to leave it up to the owners of the teams to put something together and have some sustainability goals. But he put together some sustainability goals that Major League Baseball must meet. And, you know, as an owner, as the president of a baseball team and organization, you know, you have Bud Selig, you know, meeting with you, telling you, you need to meet these goals by this time. Now, membership in the Green Sports Alliance is mandatory. There are over 100 sports teams and college teams. There's constant webinars, education that anybody can go on. You can look up, get on the website. But it's growing rapidly.
So, what are we seeing in sports venues? And all of us maybe a little more familiar with LEED. So I'm going to kind of bring up areas that relate to LEED, like site, water. One of the key things that we are seeing, let me go through my notes here so I don't miss anything. One of the key things in all these new sports buildings, now it's very different being an existing facility and being a new facility. And we'll try and cover all of that so you can compare and contrast what the Dodgers are doing on an existing building versus some of the new facilities. You have the opportunity to locate your building in a very beneficial area. That comes to the master planning circle that I was talking about, and we'll address some of those. A lot of things that you're seeing typically, stormwater management, pretty simple. Almost all of them are doing it nowadays. On-site. Another critical thing, location to public transportation, huge. That's one of the main criteria for locating where this stadium's going to go, whether it's Washington, D.C. or Minneapolis or even Miami for that matter. You know, I'll give you a couple of more examples. On water, believe it or not, almost every stadium now is using the most efficient fixtures that are out there and saving 30, 40, 50% water savings on what regular baseline code requires you to do. Low flow, not everybody's going with waterless urinals, some of them are, just to throw out some things, examples. As far as energy, well, it's like I said, energy is one of the most challenging. If it's an arena, now big difference. That's also a sports facility, but if it's an arena, you have a lot more opportunities to save energy than if it's a open ballpark or open stadium. Very difficult on those things. So there are some strategies being used as well. They say natural ventilation, but we'll get into a couple other examples. Commissioning, huge. Some of the stadiums we're working on, commissioning, I don't know if you know the benefits of commissioning. They say everything being equal, a commissioned facility versus a non-commissioned facility, the difference in energy saving can be anywhere from 13 to 16% on an annual basis. That's huge. So if you have questions on that, feel free to ask. But you say, why do we need, a lot of people ask this question, right? Why do we need to do commissioning? You know, everybody's liable for their equipment, everybody's liable for the design. Contractors liable for their building the building, architects and engineers are liable for things, and the people that are providing the equipment, there's warranties. Nothing can go wrong. I mean, everybody's equipment's warranted. Why do we need a third party to come and commission this? What's not warranted, believe it or not, is when all of these things get put together, they're working as a whole, as a sum. No one party warranties that. Yeah, equipment's warranted to work, but once it's connected to a duct and another control system here, who's going to warranty the working of the whole system or the entire control system? That's why commissioning becomes so critical, to bridge the gap between design and construction. So those are another critical things we are seeing on most of the stadiums that are being built out there. Let's see. Materials. I already mentioned deconstruction instead of demolition. I told you about all these stadiums that are being built, Olympic Stadium, the ones in Qatar that are going to be built for 2022. That's critical. Recycling. Let's see. I don't know if you guys know this. The Miami Marlins that opened just last March was built on the old Orange Bowl site, if anyone's familiar with that. 95% of construction waste was diverted on that building. That's pretty big. IEQ, pretty much non-toxic, low-emitting materials are pretty standard now. Almost all architects have that as standard specification. There's no premium, almost no premium, I can say, on some of these buildings. So let's get into some examples. I already mentioned Washington Nationals. As you can see, one of the key things, they picked the most contaminated site to locate this building. Because what that would do is there would be a remediation effort which would actually rejuvenate the site and clean it up. And that happened to be between the highways and all that, so public transportation, all stormwater. They have a bicycle valet. So you can go with your family and your kids, and there's actually a place where you can actually give your bicycle for valet and then drive home. Isn't that cool? Pretty neat, I thought. And it's all, I believe it's the world's first professional LEED certified building. Sports stadium, professional sports stadium. LEED first. And then Target Field, actually this, if you even Google, this will probably come up as the most sustainable sports stadium in the world. This will be somewhere over there. Couple of things over here. Again, master planning circle. Remember I told you what opportunities can be lost? One of the most important places where this could be located, again, mass rapid transportation, public transportation was critical in where this was sited, just west of downtown. Very critical how people got there and left. Rainwater harvesting is happening and it's being reused on site. Another thing interesting on this building, Minnesota, we know that, right? How much heat is needed. Believe it or not, they have a field heating system too, under the field, so that the grass doesn't dry or die, or in spring, when it's still freezing out there, like they still have freezing temperatures, that the roots can stay alive a little longer and spring games can happen, so they have a heating system. But luckily, they got located next to a waste to energy facility. So they burn waste and they produce energy, so that energy is being used to heat the building. A lot of that heat is basically from waste to heat facility. Basically what that does is offsets fossil fuel from burning natural gas. So that's critical. Another thing, Miami Marlins, I already mentioned to you, just opened last March. Don't talk about the record or the audience, but as far as the building, it's a very difficult. Now this is another challenge in itself. It's a retractable roof. That brings in tons of other challenges. I'm not going to get into all the technical aspects of it, but this is again the world's first retractable roof facility that got LEED Gold certified. It has been certified, and we have good energy records, 25% saving over ash rates, if you guys know what that means. I'll give you just a couple of interesting. So everybody knows chillers and boilers, right? They have heat recovery chillers. All the heat from the chillers is being captured. Otherwise, it's either rejected into the air or there's a cooling tower, it's rejected through that means, right? We are capturing all of that heat and we're heating domestic hot water on the concourse level. All the hot water needs for food service, cooking, bathrooms, it's all free. So the two big boilers that were put out there on the concourse, they haven't even come on once, because all that heat, chillers are running non-stop throughout the year. We're capturing all of that and heating all the free hot water. So that's a pretty good thing. Another thing that they worked with the city on, this ballpark, is comprehensive transport management, which is rerouting buses, providing free discounted coupons for people, tickets. If you have game day tickets, you get free public. So a whole bunch of things, new routes were added so that people wouldn't drive to the event. So they didn't have to build as many parking lots. You can see the parking lots actually over here, two big structures. So they don't have a lot of surface parking, but they have parking structures. And to not have to build huge amount of parking for all the people, even though this is one of the smallest ballparks in the country at 37,000 seats, they did a lot of that. So just giving a couple ideas of what these leading examples are doing. I'm not going to go into this one. Maybe some people's arch rivals over here up north, the Giants Stadium. They're a good organization. I think you know a couple of people on that. We're always trying to work with those, understand what they, not only were they built about 12, 13 years ago, they've built pretty efficiently, but they've done a ton of stuff. I'm not going to read everything. They've done a ton of stuff after the building was built to improve even further. Just a great example, good benchmark to look up to and try to meet and beat. And you know, they're always doing a good job. Couple of things here I want to show you. I think this year they achieved some interesting thing. They have this, what they did was they looked at the mix of this. Let's look at this last point over here. You know, they got some research going and they amended the infield mix of soil and grass just to figure out how they could reduce their water usage by almost 35%. Isn't that amazing? Just, you know, little things like that, just to give you an example of what these organizations are doing. So I think if you just Google this organization and hit green or sustainable, you'll see all this. I'm not going to go through all the details over here. I'm going to hand that off to Ella to jump into what Dodgers are doing.
Hello, I'm Ella Hazard. I'm an architect that works with Levin Associates architects in downtown Los Angeles, and we had quite the extraordinary opportunity to be a part of this Dodger Stadium project. So I'm going to tell you a little bit first about Dodger Stadium and some of the history, because we actually happen to be working with the third oldest stadium in the league after Fenway, which I think was built in 1912, and Wrigley was 1914, I believe. So Dodger Stadium, opening day, spring of 1962, and you guys down here in Orange County, like 4 years later, so a little bit younger down here in 1966 for Angels, but we don't talk about that, we're talking about Dodgers. So Levin Associates was responsible for mostly the fan experience. I think that there was a big initiative to try to improve some basic health and life safety issues and to really kind of do some of the significant upgrades that hadn't been done in a long time to make it a great place. That included things like the concessions, it included team stores, the concourses, and the restrooms. So these are kind of all the basic functions of what happens when you go to a stadium, right? These things are pretty important. So we started back in October in discussion about some of the initiatives with Dodger Stadium and what they wanted to do and what those sort of basic principles are. So I'm going to flip back to this one. I think that going back to some of the original vision of Dodger Stadium from Mr. O'Malley way back in the day, we have to kind of understand that this is a really unique stadium in a lot of ways. Not only is it one of the oldest, but it's kind of different. It's a very Los Angeles stadium. It's not in the middle of the urban fabric at all. Fenway, Wrigley Field, all of these things are built, you know, very tightly fit into the fabric of downtown, and Dodgers is not. Dodgers sits in a ravine. It's up on a hill that overlooks downtown LA. It's quite picturesque, very beautiful. Something else that's different is 1960s. We all drove cars everywhere, right? So the organization of the way the stadium is laid out is very horizontal. Your approach, the procession from when you drive in your car, and you get to your spot, and you walk, and you are already on the level of where your seating is. There isn't a whole lot of vertical circulation there, right? So it's pretty unique. It's also built into the hill, which is what allowed them to accomplish that feat. It uses some of the early precast technology. It was pretty advanced for its day. And because it's not in the middle of the urban fabric, it is perfectly symmetrical, and I think it was the last specific to baseball stadium built that wasn't meant for multiple sports. So these are all these things that we're like, okay, these are very important ideals, and there are some very important things that we don't want to change, that we want to remain the same. We want it to very much feel like it's exactly the same place that you were there last year, just better, right? So we talked about the ways that we could make it more efficient, and the ways that we could accomplish all of these things. And so health, life, safety, fan experience, sustainability. Great, it's October. Opening day doesn't change. That was 5 months ago. So it's been a very exciting five months, and I think we've accomplished a tremendous amount, and I'm very excited to show you and hope you guys can make it all up there to see. So specifically about the sustainability components of this, I'll flip back through this. The design considerations, energy efficiency. Of course, basically anything that we do in terms of installation of any kind of fixture or equipment, it's probably going to draw more because our devices are more, they require more. We have more definition in all of our screens. We have to put more lights than there were there before because it didn't really even, there were levels that you could barely see where you were going in places. So we added a bunch of stuff. So maybe we didn't get a big win there, but we kind of have to look at this in a holistic manner. So the next point, which is water use reduction. Well, we live in a desert, so this is an important one. So I think Corbett will touch a little bit on the landscape side of this, but from the design side within the stadium, our water use reduction included lots of low flow fixtures, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Natural ventilation. Well, the concession stands, the restrooms, most of the buildings except for I think the club level and the retail stores are all naturally ventilated. It's the same temperature as your seat as it is in the bathroom. And that's not a problem because you're basically outdoors, right? Cool roofs. The new buildings that we did put on site, we made sure to use the cool roofs there so that because they're not ventilated and we have no way to control that temperature, we tried to make it as comfortable and efficient as possible. Waste reduction and recycled materials. Francine can talk to you a little bit later about that process during construction, but the things that we did try to install, we tried with the time that we had to be very conscious of what we were putting in and to try to source as locally as possible. So, more specifically, you'll see the pictures on the left and the pictures on the right are different. So, from 1962 opening day until 2012, those things in that pictures are the ones that we took off of the wall in October. And the trough urinals. Oh. Those were there too. So these are the fixtures that are a much lower, higher efficiency, lower usage. So the faucets, the toilets, and they had started a precedent back in 2007, I believe, of using the waterless urinals and found it to be successful. And their maintenance program is great. And I think that they've been really adventuresome and brave to do this, and it's working out well. So we're excited to have repeated that in this go around. Some of the stats, tied all of the lighting fixtures this time into the building management system because we have a comprehensive one now, which is great. So that allows everybody to control it in one place, so nobody has to wander around and shut the lights off. The faucets, 0.35 gallons per minute, low flow, automatic soap, the whole deal, and ultra-low flush consumption toilets, wireless urinals, and so the big bold and the bottom and the yellows, that's a big number. This is one thing we really could do, and so we went for it. So
yeah, that's a very good number compared to all the other stadiums, what they're managing, even the new ones. So
I can't wait to see the bill. So once I see the bill, I'll let you know. Send you an email.
Send an update to the video post. So the energy efficiency measures, so 100% outside air system. This kind of goes to the increased indoor air quality, outdoor air delivery monitoring, variable air volume system with VFD. These are in some of the enclosed spaces. So
yeah, these are the few spaces, the clubhouse, I think there was about 80,000 square feet of spaces that were renovated, and all these new spaces were tied into the chiller plant that was upgraded about
2006.
7 years ago. And was not being used. Believe it or not, this was even before your time.
They had about 8% load on our chiller plant.
That's it.
So, so we actually had to force load on the chiller plant to actually get it to work. And so I can give you nightmares about the repair bills. But we started a process of actually tying into our chilled water back in 2009. I have a commercial real estate background, so managed high-rise buildings for 15 years down here in Orange County, LA. And so when I found out we had a chiller plant and I found out we had 8% load, that was like one of my first initiatives. Let's use it. And it was tough. It was tough to get people to change their mindset because in a sporting facility, you have a lot of grandfathered folks. So they started when they were kids, and they're not thinking sustainability. They're not thinking about energy consumption. They're not thinking about water reduction. they're thinking about how do I operate this place and keep it running. So it was really an educational process to get people to understand, you know what, we need to be efficient, we need to be mindful of our environment, and it's still a learning lesson. So,
I mean, the intent was a really efficient system, but you're not using it. It's just sitting there, and then you have redundant, inefficient equipment scattered all around the building that they were using as heat pumps all over the place. So you got rid of all of that stuff, and now you're drawing chill water and you're increasing the capacity, as you said. Hopefully it'll get to its most efficient point, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, and I think actually to speak to some of the historical aspects of this, the way the stadium is configured, a lot of the services run around the back side where the hill is, and it's not easy to get there. So a lot of the issues that we were dealing with weren't new construction. There's a lot of cost buried in basically deferred maintenance on the building. So I think it's great that when we had the opportunity, we went for it and really kind of cleaned it up and brought it all back together. So, yep, natural ventilation and cool roofs. You can see we put the white roof on there. Yay, we did it. And the buildings are all open, as I mentioned before. There's exhaust fans, but we didn't put anything beyond the minimum requirement. They're all open. It's quite nice, actually, up there. Reduced waste and recycled materials. So, recycled materials, we're selective about the things that we use, like the toilet partitions. And then example B is the CMU block that we built the new restroom and concession buildings out of. The CMU block, I think it's 8% pre-consumer and 8% post-consumer. So it's not a ton, but it's sourced locally. The plant was 15 miles away from Dodger Stadium, and it was, manufactured and mined within the 500 miles. So there are certain things where we had control over it. We were really excited to be able to do that. And that's another interesting tidbit is that this pattern of the block there is something that we found at Dodger Stadium, and it occurs kind of sporadically, but we built some new things with that same pattern. We contacted Angela's Block, and they actually found the original mold for us, and were able to recast with it. So it's been kind of a like back in the corner somewhere, they dug it out. So it's been great, and actually I think the things that we're doing serve to tie the building together in a way that maybe it wasn't before. So we're excited. Also, paperless restrooms. We were trying to go 99.9% paperless. We put in the one little paper towel dispenser in case your kid has a has a boogie, but aside from that, everything's the automatic hand dryers, and we are really making an effort on this end to change the way that we're working, and I think Francine can speak to this a little bit more with their food service. But yeah, we made the effort where we could. And I think I'm going to turn this over to Corbett, and he can talk a little bit about some of the landscape.
So I think Ella very adequately covered the history of the actual stadium and a lot of the site. I started at MLA to start on this project, so kind of jumping into a new office on a new project from October to, we knew, basically March. So it was hit the ground running. My first, I've been to Dodger Stadium prior to that, but as a fan, your vision is a little bit different than when you're considering some of the site context and opportunities that exist. So you can see in this picture my first visit, the image at the top. Parking came right up against the gates right up against the building, and similar to what Ella was talking about improving the fan experience, we also felt we needed to expand the fan experience. Dodger Stadium, just as it kind of grew and demand for parking, I think we all know people like to park right next to where they're going, and not all of us can do that, and I think that we all see the value in not doing that. So this is an example of a before and after. In general, the image below is the direction that it's going. I guess a little sneak peek at some of the things going on.
It's going right now.
Yes, it is. So some of the things that we wanted to look into, Mia often says that sustainability needs to be part of the DNA of the design at her office. And I think that's something that's really easy to say, but it has a real practical application. I think sometimes sustainable actions become an individual item, something that through any value engineering, any cost cutting, any maybe one person's opinion about a product that they think they've used before or used 10 years ago, but there's advancements, it becomes an item that's really easy to take out of the list, where designing sustainability as an integral part of your entire design concept makes them not only more integrated, but also more successful, not only in implementation, but also in action. So I think that's important to keep in mind. So some of our goals as we went out there to expand the fan experience and also improve it, if anyone's been there, there's, similar to this picture, a lot of parking lot space. The original design, as it's built into a hill, they have these beautiful radial or kind of arms reaching out of landscape slopes, and they used to include pedestrian pathways, very generous pedestrian pathways at different terraces, and then the circulation entered the level that you were going to, although parking, as there's maybe a preferable parking locations and people pay for those, it also becomes something where you're climbing, I think it's about 180 feet from bottom to top. So you have 180 feet if you park in the general parking, and the general seats are at the top. So now you've got circulation that's generally climbing the 180 feet all the time. And so how do we improve the circulation, the pedestrian experience? So some of our goals were to separate the pedestrian and vehicular circulation. That's going to, and we'll talk about that, improve the vehicle timing, periods that people are sitting in their cars, the time it gets off the highway to their parking space. If we can help sync those two patterns together. We wanted to improve the water efficiency. When we first got out there talking to the landscape crew, some of the system had deteriorated. There was a lot of hand watering, truck watering, which there's a great inefficiency there. And so wanted to improve the water efficiency. We wanted to add a lot of planting. That you can see it's kind of a harsh landscape. Outside of those landscape arms, you can see a couple of trees towards the back in the existing. That's one of those edges. And to help reduce the amount of hardscape and bring planting into the environment, not only for reducing hardscape surface for stormwater runoff, but also reducing heat island effect. And we also wanted to reuse some of the existing materials. There's a lot of material at such a large site, and how can we reuse that? And also support alternate means of transportation and lower stormwater runoff. So improving circulation, there was a study done prior to our involvement that took a really expansive look at public transit, and we were able to use that document as an informative document to realize the ways that the stadium can be tied into the greater public transit circulation system that exists. But then when you get to the stadium, how might that work to improve the public transit experience, thus promoting more people to take public transit? And some of the things that we looked at is how do we improve circulation? They get a lot of people, and I think that's one of the challenges with a stadium. There's a game, it starts at a certain time and it ends at a certain time. So you have a great number of people coming all at the same time and leaving, even more difficult, leaving at the exact same time. So a couple of things we wanted to look at is providing more experience that you can have in advance and post-game, expanding that window that traffic is coming. We looked at expanding the location where public transit occurs so that they can have multiple bus loading and unloadings. We're able to establish that. We improved the pedestrian-vehicular interaction by separating and identifying specific pedestrian circulation paths that didn't exist before, and worked with someone at Dodgers who's been the traffic person, speaking of people who are kind of built into the system, extremely knowledgeable about every interworking of how cars get in, how they park. So he's a great resource. But working with him to refine that process to get people there more quickly. We improved the ADA accessibility and some of the fan accessibility, talking about the 180 feet of climbing. And then installation of electric car charging stations. As far as sustainable site water efficiency, I'll start with irrigation. As mentioned, there was a lot of hand watering, truck watering, so we're able to upgrade portions or a lot of the internal irrigation to smart control and upgrading some of the irrigation heads. And then we were also very interested in using low water consumption plantings, a lot of California natives, to reduce the amount of additional watering that may need to occur as we remove some of this hardscape and install some softscape. Stormwater, of course, we now have less hardscape surface, so we're able to reduce the amount of stormwater runoff. And they're actually even going to be putting in an underground holding tank that then operates as an irrigation point, just as a gravity feed to irrigate some of the slopes. And then use of sustainable materials. We were able to reuse some of the existing materials. You can see those are the existing gates, and there's some beauties to them and there's some non-beauties to them, I guess, from a designer's standpoint. But we saw a lot of value in being able to reuse the same gates and just relocate them to fit more within the design and to support that expanded fan experience. We used products containing recycled material. Those baseballs are made from a product that utilizes recycled material. And then a lot of the materials are also recyclable, and I think that's something that often gets overlooked. And then we're able to use materials that have a high albedo to reduce the heat island effect. And I think turn it over to Francine.
Well, good evening. It's amazing to listen to this incredible team of architects and our engineer talk about the building, because it's exactly that. It's a 50-year-old building that, you know, we started really with grassroots initiatives. And while Dodger Stadium is one of the most unique stadiums within the U.S., there was just not a lot that we can do. So what I'm really going to touch on is what we were able to accomplish prior to bringing in this group before the ownership came in and decided to spend over $100 million in building out the facility. We were fortunate enough to work with a team of over 6 different architectural firms, and each of the firms had a specific core function within the facility. ME did all of our engineering from mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Hunt Construction is our contractor of record who's working with various trades, both on the project management side as well as the GC side. So we were very, for us, we were just absorbing a lot of the visions of the architects, saying, you know, Francine, these are things that you guys can do to help become a little bit more efficient. But some of the things that we focused on before the group came in were transportation initiatives. We focused on food service, and that was really from sourcing our food to the type of products that we purchased. Landscape. So we really did start focusing on planting drought-resistant type or drought-tolerant type planting materials. Our mechanical systems, we talked a little bit about our chiller plant that was just inefficient, not really carrying any load. So we started focusing on areas where we could actually tie some of the chilled water into some of our equipment. Electrical. Prior to bringing in ME, we were looking at changing out light fixtures, occupancy sensors, really easy things to do, but really that helped change our consumption throughout the building. Plumbing initiatives, we went to the waterless urinals back in 2007 when we did a retrofit of the field level, which was roughly an $80 million project, but that's where McCourt basically started. He started in 2004, went to about 2008, and at that point the capital markets kind of dried up, and so did the money, and so did construction at the property. Our green cleaning, recycling, and really just working with MLB to focus on their greening initiatives. So that is how we started, and it was really all grassroots initiatives. And one of the things that we're very proud of is the transportation initiative. We do work with MTA, and they provide a Dodger Express shuttle. we receive probably about 700 to 800 fans coming into the stadium on a bus. So if you've got tickets to the game, you can get on that Dodger Express for free. It brings you to the stadium, takes you back to Union Station. We have also partnered with Metrolink. Metrolink has provided fans with the ability to ride free from Orange County, Riverside County, into LA, get on the bus, get to the stadium and back. It does service the Orange County area, the San Bernardino area, and the local LA area. One of the things that we're working on with Metro this year, which is a little bit different, is we're giving them a dedicated express lane, which for me is a nightmare from a transportation management perspective, because that takes one lane of traffic out of fans coming into Dodger Stadium. And if anybody wants to know, we can park up to 22,000 vehicles at the stadium. So that's 22,000 vehicles that I probably will see on opening day. And on any average game, I probably see anywhere from 13,000 to 16,000 cars coming into the stadium, in addition to the shuttle transport that brings people in. LA, very bike-friendly city, and obviously you guys know Stan Kasten was with the Nationals, Bob Wolf was with the Nationals. Now I know why they wanted me to install the bike racks. I think I'm going to have a bike valet pretty soon. I don't know, but I hope it's not me parking the bikes. That would be bad. So LA is actually installing a bike lane. It's something that LA is really looking at. I mean, they're looking at becoming more sustainable. They're looking at different initiatives to get people in and out of the stadium. And we have a traffic problem downtown LA. I mean, coming into the game, our traffic time is probably 6:40. Our game starts at 7:10. And anybody who wants to come to the Dodger game comes between 6:40 and 7:10. And of course, all 15,000 cars want to come through the gates at one time, which creates a traffic jam. So we've been working through LADOT, which is our transit department, the Metro, and LAPD, as well as the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, to really create a better pedestrian, not only pedestrian access, shuttle access, but also vehicles coming in and out of the stadium. The other thing we've been working on, Levy is our food service provider. Levy is probably one of the best concessionaires out there in terms of what they're trying to do from a locally grown foods. So they purchase about 30 to 35% of their food from local areas. And that's mostly their meats, their dairy, and meats, dairy, and what other item? Let me see. Oh, their produce. Levy has also gone to biodegradable, compostable packaging materials. So almost everything you get at the stadium can be composted. So every serving bowl, their forks, their straws, their cups, everything is biodegradable. So it's been great for us. In addition, we do service the local mission. So post-game, any food that is not sold, anything that's still back of the house that's yet to be wrapped, will get wrapped and sent out to the local mission. So we are feeding the homeless. So great effort by Levy. Our landscape, we talked a little bit about it, drought-resistant planting. We've got a great landscape manager. The 330 acres is managed by one landscape manager and 6 full-time employees. So they're quite busy. And I guess I'm going to hire some more people when Corbett finishes his planting. But we do a great deal at the stadium. We're very efficient with respect to how we manage our landscape. But it has been very inefficient with respect to irrigation. So we're looking forward to some of these changes. It'll help make our lives a little bit easier, and I'm sure the guys will be thrilled when they don't actually have to go out there with the hose and hose down a plant. So our building equipment, from the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, we've got a great partnership with DWP, the Department of Water and Power in LA. Every year we meet with them and talk about rebate initiatives and incentives that are out there for landlords and owners. And we walk the building with them. So they've been able to help us realize savings prior to this initiative just by changing out light fixtures, relamping the building, changing out our fixtures from, you know, some of the troughs, and actually people are going to miss those. I've already started receiving emails. Can I buy them? I'm like, yeah, sure. We're not selling, they're not for sale. But we have received complaints. People want to know where those are going, and I don't even know what to say.
Secret restroom that still might have them.
So we've done a lot of, again, grassroots initiatives. We've done a lot of the discussions with DWP. How can we become a little bit more efficient? Walking the building is the best way to do it, and we've been able to realize savings. I mean, the payback for us in energy efficiency or water reduction has been less than a year in some cases. So it's been pretty incredible to have that great partnership with them. Green cleaning, I mean, this is the buzz, right? Everybody's using the green chemicals, so we do use green chemicals throughout the facility. Everyone always wants to know, how do you get the stadium so clean? Got about 150 janitorial employees that are out there on a day-to-day basis. Recycling, this is really where we started. In 2009, when I came to the stadium, as you can see, our diversion rate was about 22.3%. And that was bottles, cans, aluminum, fryer oil. I mean, we recycled everything that we could. And then I started to analyze it. I started at the stadium with the Dodgers in 2009 and figured, how are we going to make a thoughtful impact here on the facility that really at the end of the day we can pat ourselves on the back and be proud of what we've done without going out there and saying, hey, we're doing all this remarkable stuff, because at the end of the day, this is what everybody should be doing, right? Everybody needs to be conscious of the environment. So we started looking at areas where we could make some changes, and so we started really starting to train our staff what's recyclable, what's not recyclable. In 2010, we went to Levy and said, hey, you guys need to start looking at what you guys do in the back of the house, how you guys actually get rid of the clippings and all of that stuff. So they started composting, so that helped. It was a small change, but you'll see and you'll notice the big change from 2011 to 2012. In 2012, we started to introduce compost. Why? Because almost all the material in the stadium, if you think about it, the post-consumer goods, the service wares, everything was compostable. The food was compostable. So for us, while the impact wasn't significant, I mean, it's 6 percentage points, maybe a little bit less than that, I'm hoping that this year will be over 50%, and the reason why is we took so much time to train our staff. They didn't know what was compostable, what wasn't, so everything was going in a landfill bin. So I think this year our goal, while lofty, I think it's something that's attainable. We're hoping to be at 50 to 55% diversion rate. So we're pretty proud of where we're heading. MLB, obviously, they're pursuing the initiative. They've started a Green Tracks program, and it helps all of the teams kind of compete against each other. We're all very competitive by nature, so when we get in the room, I'm always calling out the guy in San Francisco, I'm going to get you, in a healthy way, right? But their diversion rate, I mean, when we sit down, we talk about it, this guy has won we call it the Green Glove Award. He's won it for like the last 20 years, and I swear, he really ticks me off, but he's at a 90% diversion rate. I mean, how can you compete with that, right?
I think 2012 was 100%.
Thanks. I'll be making a call tonight, so I will see him on Monday. So anyway, at any rate, I mean, we're all there. It's a healthy competition. We all get along really great, and we're all there to push each other. And MLB is there to help support that initiative for us. So as an operator, it's an incredible thing to see when you get all 30 teams together and how excited everybody is about where they are. Construction diversion, one of the things that Mohit mentioned earlier on some of these other venues, we're at a 75% diversion rate right now with our construction. So that's pretty incredible. I mean, it's something that was an initiative when we started the construction build, and we're looking to at some point figure out how we become LEED accredited. I mean, I don't know that it's really doable with the age of the stadium, but it's definitely a goal for us. So what's next for the Dodgers? We have started a green team for 2013, and we've got a team lead. We're working with our local waste hauler, which is Republic Management. Most of you probably know who they are. But we're starting to get our employees excited about recycling, because they think when people really understand the impact on the environment is when they want to make a change. For me, it didn't hit home until I visited a MIRF, which is a materials recycling facility. I went there and I started looking at all the things that people were actually throwing away, and I thought to myself, this makes me sick to my stomach. I mean, it was a sad thing to see. So I took a group back, and they were like, "You've got to be kidding me!" But then they got super excited about recycling, and it's made a huge initiative, or a huge change for us. The other thing we're looking at doing, and again, we have to work with ownership and their blessing. I mean, for us this year, it was all about the fan experience. We wanted to make sure the fans felt good about coming back to Dodger Stadium, that they were engaged. But now it's all about efficiency, right? So we can do all of this stuff to make the stadium beautiful, but they need to be able to realize the dollars at the end of the day. So we'll start looking at energy audits. We'll start looking at water audits, paper use, how we source our paper that's used in the office, because we kill a lot of trees. I mean, at the end of the day, we are looking to become paperless, but it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a lot of education and changing people's pattern. Offsetting the greenhouse gas emissions, I mean, planting, some of the things that we can do. LEED accreditation, figure out how we get there. Technology enhancements, I mean, we're always looking to become a little bit better than the next guy. I'm not going to talk about the team that's down here, but we've got full HD now, so it's all about us. Educating our fan base on the web portal, and then obviously fan education on recycling. So for us, it's all about making sure at the end of the day that everything that we're doing is thoughtful, but we're also kind of pushing that forward, right? It's all about playing it forward. So that's who the Dodgers are, and we're excited to be here, so thank you very much.